Welcome back to CJ's Kitchen. Today I'm starting a new series called Pantry 101. This episode is going to focus on where to start when your cupboards are absolutely bare. Maybe you're moving into a place for the first time, or you've built a home and you haven't had a chance to put anything in the cupboards yet. This is where I recommend starting so that you have a little bit of versatility and you can throw a few things together, but you're not breaking the bank by buying everything that you need all at once. So that's the first tip. I recommend buying things in small batches. Buy a few basic staples and then build. Each time you go back to the store, buy a couple more things that you need to add. So right off the bat, one of the things that I absolutely cannot live without in my pantry is olive oil. It's a good all-purpose cooking oil. A lot of people say that you shouldn't fry with it, but I've noticed that plenty of chefs do exactly that. They even deep fry with it and it works out just fine. So if you can only buy one oil and you're starting your pantry fresh, I would definitely start with extra virgin olive oil. You can also make salad dressings and things with it, so it's really, really versatile. Or even dipping sauces, just to have like some bread and wine or something for dinner. You can dip it in olive oil with a little something else if you want. So the next thing is I would highly recommend having pastas on hand. I always try to keep some shortcut pastas. Typically I'll have elbow macaroni or shells. I always have bow tie pasta or farfalle, but whatever shortcut pastas you like. Penne is handy, rigatoni, anything like that. Like I said, I like to have macaroni or shells for things like macaroni and cheese or like a tuna mac salad. But then the larger cuts are nice for pastas and things. And then I would recommend having some long cut pasta as well. Spaghetti or vermicelli, you can't go wrong with this. Drew a blank. Another alternative would be a shortcut wide egg noodles such as this. These are great in casseroles. I also really like rotini. I always have a bunch of different pastas on hand. But again, if you're just starting out, I'd buy just a couple of each of these and you'll be set for a while. I usually buy them on sale. I actually really, really like the brand Barilla. So if you can get that on sale, oftentimes they'll have it for you know, $5 for $5 or something like that. So if you can get them for about $1 a piece, they're worth it. Otherwise, the store brands are just fine, and a lot of times you can get them for under $1 a piece. So definitely go with those. So moving on to canned goods. I always try to keep some tomato products on hand. If you have the budget for it, you can't go wrong with San Marzano tomatoes, but any kind of tomato product that you like to use is fine. Any brand is fine. Even chefs in restaurants, I've heard Mario Batali talk about using canned tomatoes when fresh tomatoes aren't in season, so they're a great way to go. But the San Marzano are particularly good, and you can use these with just a little bit of basil and some of that pasta, and you've got a great dish. Whether you add meat or other vegetables to it or not, it's going to be really delicious. I try to keep canned beans on hand. These are, again, they're a really great protein source. You can keep a variety in, but again, I would just choose maybe a couple cans of your favorite. You can usually get them for under $1 a can. Brand does not seem to make a big, but you can whip up all kinds of quick things like huevos rancheros or nachos, or you know, just a bean side dish to go with some tacos or something. Really great. And if you don't eat meat, these are, again, great source of protein. To go with that, I usually do keep some green chilies on hand. This isn't necessarily something that you need to run right out and get, but if you like Mexican food, this is a good addition to your pantry for just starting out, because again, you can add it to all kinds of things. You can add it to egg dishes, bean dishes, any kind of a taco dish. If you have some chicken or steak or even just hamburger that you're gonna throw a dish together with, this is a great addition to add a little bit of flavor. One of the last things in the canned, I have a couple more things in the canned category, but this is a really big one, and that's just canned tuna. I always buy solid white albacore or some version of albacore But whatever kind of tuna you like is fine. I always buy mine packed in water, but again, whatever you like. This is a good thing to try to catch on sale and stock up on, but even just a couple cans can go a long way. You can make a variety of things, again, like tuna casserole, or you can have a salad with tuna on it. You can make tuna melts. All kinds of things are great with tuna. Another alternative, if you're not a fan of tuna, is maybe canned salmon. I even make salmon patties out of that, and that can be super delicious. So along with that, I would have breadcrumbs on hand for things like salmon patties, or breading chicken or fish or anything that you want to make. If you think that's what you're going to do, I would definitely add breadcrumbs to that list, but it's one of those things you could weigh your options and decide. Finally, in the cupboard staples, I always keep stock on hand. Even if it's summer, it's good to have some stock. I like to buy it in these big cartons. You can use what you need. They are sealed with foil. Once you open them, you can store them in the fridge and use them as needed. A little bit of stock, like a beef stock, in your spaghetti sauce, again, going back to the tomatoes, will give it an all-day cooked flavor, but it's also handy in all kinds of sauces. Of course, if it's winter, you can make soups. I usually have at least a couple cartons of chicken stock on hand, and then I try to at least have one of beef. But I would get maybe one of each just to start out, or if you mostly eat chicken, then you could just get chicken, or if you mostly eat beef, you could just get beef, but having something like this on hand is really great. So the next thing I want to talk about is spices. So of course you're going to need right away to get salt and pepper. You cannot cook without some seasoning, and salt and pepper are so simple and an easy way to go. But in addition to that, here's a few additional recommendations I would have. So for starters, I'd say something in the onion department. This way, if you run out of fresh onion, which by the way is on my list, we'll get to that in a minute, but if you run out of it, then you have something that's still onion flavored. Or if you want something to just have a mild little bit of onion in it, like you're mixing up a taco filling or something, or something with those beans, these are great additions. Minced onions, great. Powdered onion powder's great. You can go either way. I only just recently started buying minced onions again, but they can be awful handy to have around, so I recommend one of those. Definitely garlic, and I prefer garlic powder. I do also always keep garlic salt on hand, but I would pick one. I would pick the one you cook with the most, you think you're going to use the most, and go with that. Most versatile is going to be the garlic powder, because you're going to have salt on hand anyway, so you can add salt that way rather than doing it through the garlic, but it gives you a lot more control over how much salt, as well as giving it flavor at the same time. The last spice or herb that I would add is just something green. You can take your pick of what you think you're going to cook with the most. Herbs and spices can be pretty spendy, so I would just pick your favorite. Probably the most versatile is going to be parsley, but oregano, you really can't go wrong with oregano, or one of those Italian blends. I don't tend to buy the Italian blends much anymore, but they're a really great way to start out if you're, again, starting with a completely empty cupboard. So that's a good way to go. Basil would be great. Thyme is always good, but I would just pick one and go with that, and then I'd watch the sales. A lot of times you can get buy two, get one free. I know my local Safeway does that a lot, and that's a really great way to not only buy stuff you need, but also stock up on the things that you use a lot. So each time you go to the store, just keep an eye on it. Add one or two more herbs or spices, or three if there's a good sale, and stock up that. So the next thing I would recommend is having a few fresh items on hand. You're probably going to want to pick some fresh veggies and things for maybe salads or whatever kind of vegetables you like to eat. That's entirely up to your choice, as well as any animal proteins, whether you eat fish or, you know, beef or pork or chicken. I would pick those up. I would build around the ingredients that you already purchased. So I always keep garlic on hand. Of course, you can use the garlic powder if you need to. So when you're looking for garlic, you want it to have be very white and firm. Some garlics are purple, have a purple coloring, and that's okay. But what you don't want is for it to be yellowed or starting to blacken anywhere. You want it to have very firm cloves, and it should be pretty white and clean looking, and likely you're going to have really good garlic in that. I also recommend onion, and you can just pick your favorite kind of onion. I personally prefer sweet yellow onions, Walla Walla sweets if I can get them, but any kind of onion that you like, whether it's purple onions or yellow onions or white onions. I also recommend having citrus on hand. So I would say either citrus or vinegar, both if you don't mind spending a few extra bucks. In the winter it can be hard to get good citrus, but I like to have, especially in the summer, lemons and limes on hand. You can use them for marinades, you can make dressings from them, you can slice them up and throw them in a glass of water just to make it extra special. Of course, a little fresh lemon on like a Caesar salad is really fabulous. So lots and lots of options, so they're good to have. What I look for is for the fruit to feel heavy for its size. If I pick this up and it feels like it weighs nothing, actually this one is very light, and this one's quite heavy. They're more likely to be juicy if they're really heavy. So try to, feel a few, see how they go, and then I look for the skin to be in pretty good shape. One thing I found is if you're going to zest limes, they zest better if they're a little rougher in texture, and I bet that that's not gonna pick up much on camera, but they should be kind of rough in texture if you want to zest them. It just seems to work better, but you can make it work even without. So those are great to have on hand. I highly recommend that. If you're gonna buy vinegar, I would say an apple cider vinegar or a wine vinegar, like a white wine vinegar, are really good starting points. They're going to pop up in a lot of recipes. They're really great for making dressings. You could also go with just a plain white vinegar, but you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck if you go with one of the flavored ones. So, and you add, going back to the olive oil that we talked about earlier, you can make a really simple dressing just with equal parts of citrus juice to olive oil or vinegar. Those are great ways to make dressings. You can add a little bit of seasonings to it if you like, but those are really simple and light and fairly healthy. So last but not least are the items for your fridge. Of course, I just talked about buying meats and things. If you eat meats, I would just pick out whatever's on sale. What I really like to do is get them in a value pack. And so what I'll do is I'll bring it home. There's only 2 of us, so a value pack goes a really long way. A lot of times there's as many as 8 to 12 pieces of whatever it is you're purchasing in those packages, especially chicken. It tends to have a lot in it. So what I'll do is I'll bring them home, I'll pull out a couple to cook right away that night, and then I will put the rest in Ziploc bags and throw them in my freezer. So now you've got the basis for other meals, and you don't have to buy that again right away the next time you go to the store, and you can buy something else. So it's a really good way to build up your pantry a little bit. Eggs are absolutely essential in my opinion. They're one of the perfect foods. They're full of protein, they are versatile. You can make omelets, you can add them to stir fries, you can make egg salad sandwiches if you need to. They're just great. We eat eggs at least a couple times a week. We're lucky enough to have our own chickens, so I would just recommend getting whatever eggs you like in whatever quantities you think you're going to go through, but I would at least have them on hand, because you just can't go wrong with a few eggs in your fridge. In a pinch, you can make an omelet and you have dinner, or a fried egg sandwich. So of course, if you're dairy users, you're going to want milk or a milk substitute. If you're not, I really recommend having butter on hand too. Of course, when you're starting out that first trip to the store, you can easily skip it and just use olive oil. and then maybe purchase butter the next time. But you can't beat butter on, bread, or there's just things that there's no substitute for butter, in my opinion. So I have just a couple more categories I wanted to talk about before I wrap this up, and one of those is condiments. You cannot go wrong having some mayonnaise and mustard on hand, whether that's a grainy mustard, a Dijon mustard, or just your plain old yellow mustard. These are handy items for many things. Mayonnaises often go in dips and creamy dressings. Mustard can be super handy for dressings as well. Obviously, it's a really versatile condiment if you're having, hamburgers and hot dogs or sandwiches. So these are really great to have on hand. I also really recommend having ketchup, and I've noticed a lot of people don't do ketchup, and I'm one of those people who actually puts ketchup on their hot dogs. Yes, guilty as charged, but the fact is that ketchup is really a handy ingredient. You can use it in barbecue sauces, you can use it for meatloaf, and there's just a lot of things that you can sneak this in. And in a pinch, you could probably even use it to add a little bit of tomato to something if you realized you're short. So you're not big on. In addition to these items, you may want to have hot sauce or salsa. If you have salsa on hand, again, it's a great ingredient for making So finally, I really recommend having bread or tortillas on hand. They're really great for, quesadillas or sandwiches. You can, if you have some peanut butter, that definitely goes on the list as well. Peanut butter is another great ingredient, but again, then you can, if nothing else, you can make a peanut butter sandwich. And then I would recommend either jam or jelly or honey. Again, versatility is really key here, and I think if I had to choose just one, I would go with the honey, because you can put it in dressings, you can put it on that peanut butter sandwich, you can use it as an ingredient in many dishes, and it's a really, again, a really versatile ingredient that you can use that'll be handy to have on hand. I would also recommend some potatoes or rice. You don't have to get both right off the bat, but a little rice or potatoes goes a long way, and it's really versatile. And although you could certainly get like a instant mashed potato or something like that, I think I would go with either frozen potatoes or fresh whole potatoes, because you can do so much more with them. Mashed potatoes really are not difficult to make from scratch, and I will probably do a video on that here in the near future. But they're actually quite quick and easy to make, the instant kind. But with whole potatoes, you can fry them, you can boil them and throw together. Great way to go. You can also bake them and have them for dinner. And going back to that salsa or your meat products, they're great topping for your baked potatoes. So I definitely recommend that, or like I say, rice, because again, you have a lot of options with rice. So I think that wraps it up. I hope you found this informative and helpful. Please do let me know in the comments below, or if there's an item that you think I missed that's really important, I'd love to hear about it. I know that I stock way more things in this, so it's hard to narrow it down to just a few, but I think these are a good basis to get you started. So thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to give me the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch each and every one. And until next time when I see you in my kitchen, ciao.